is my better half, Jacob Cogman. He's a first-year Master Divinity student at Candler School of Theology at Emory University. And the highlight of his semester so far is he just got an A on his church history test.
I did, and this guy, James and I, we've been rocking since the womb. 9 months and 22 years later, we're still here, and today we're talking to you about self-care.
Because self-care is basically loving yourself enough to put yourself first.
Abraham is listed as a champion of faith, yet he struggled with doubt. So we're not protesting to be champions of self-care, but as the worship team just said, God has made us brave enough to let you into our struggle on this morning. So mine starts off like this. And before I say anything, I'd like to let you know that this is a true story. Not based on a true story, not an adaptation of a story that somebody probably wrote and then got it wrong when they made the movie, or even one of those nice Lifetime biopics, not because they're bad, but simply because I just don't know who would play me in real life. But mine starts off like this. I lost 30 pounds. I did. I lost 30 pounds. It didn't matter that I was a faithful visitor to Popeye's Chicken every Tuesday, or that I was even more faithful to the cafe on campus every Wednesday when they served fried chicken there. The only thing that even resembled health that I was doing was drinking water, and lots of it. So my mother sees this. And if you have a mother like mine, you'll understand this next statement. She tends to always get what she wants. So I don't know if it was to keep peace or just to have her stop asking me about it. I decided to go to the doctor and get tested because she just would not let it go. Fast forward to the next day, I'm driving back to South Carolina from Maryland. I get a phone call. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, and that should have been sign number one that something was wrong, because anyone that knows me knows that I'm not a morning person. So if you call me before 10 a.m., you better need prayer, or you better need something that cannot wait until the afternoon. So I got this phone call, and the phone call is from my doctor. She says, "Hello, may I speak to Jacob?" I'm like, "This is he." And literally the conversation goes from 0 to 1,000. "I just got your blood work back," yada, 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 yada. So just so that way I don't have to go through all those boring details for you, I'll just summarize it by saying this. She told me that I had tested positive for type 2 diabetes. So in that moment, I realized that my weight loss wasn't due to my commitment to health or wholeness. It was really due to a medical condition. In that moment, I'm not a crier, but I cried that day. I said, "God, I know you're here. I believe in the omnipresence of God, right? But where are you? God, I know you're here, but where are you? I don't see you in this situation," because the way she made it sounded like I was about to die. It was so bad to the point where she wanted to put me in the hospital, take me out of school, and this is also 40 days before graduation. So before I took her report, I went and talked to Dr. Jesus for a bit. And I said, "Well, Doc, I've never known you to keep me from doing stuff that you've called me to. So are you going to keep me until graduation?" I got confirmation. I kept on driving down 95 South. But as I drove, I realized I have to do better. I have to start taking care of myself.
So we've all been there before. His story's not that different from most of ours. For some of us, we wait to the last minute to do that paper that was assigned 2 months ago, and we stay up until 7 a.m. the next morning to do it. In my case, it was, I'm going to go out just because it's pre-Friday. For those of you that don't know that just means it's Thursday night instead of Friday. But my story starts in December of my senior year on a cold afternoon on Bowling Air Force Base. See, I thought I was the man. I thought I was invincible. Undergrad is this far behind me. Graduate school is this far ahead of me. I'm thinking I'm going to have it. So I decide I'm going to go out and play soccer in the freezing cold. That should have been sign number one. Sign number two, a ball gets kicked far up in the air, and something told me, don't dive for that ball. You know, we've all had those moments. We think about, okay, we probably shouldn't do this, but then we just think we're just great enough that we can actually pull it off, right? Wrong. So I actually go up and I dive for the ball. I get the ball goes in the net, the crowd goes wild, and guess what happens? I land on my hip. Now, for those of you that have ever played sports before, you know adrenaline kicks in pretty fast. So I walk back and I'm thinking, okay, I'm good, right? Wrong. I get home, I can't even walk up the stairs, to the point where my room had to go from upstairs to downstairs in the guest bedroom on the side. And I'm thinking, okay, baseball season's 2 months away, I'm gonna be ready, right? Wrong. My hip was hurt so bad that physical therapy did not help, and I got left off of the opening day roster for our baseball team. That crushed me. And you shouldn't think that, because it's not like I didn't have friends, it's not like I wasn't involved, it's not like there were other things going on in my life, but I realized that, for better or worse, I had tied part of my college identity to that team. And so it took me to a very deep, dark place. For the first time in a very long time, I was angry at God. I was mad at myself, and I started not eating right. I started not sleeping, and then when my hip did get better, I was too ashamed to go to the gym because everyone was trying to figure out what happened to James. And so then I gained 20 pounds. Jacob has his story, I have mine, but these are just examples of what lack of self-care can look like. But I guess the big question for this presentation is, what is self-care?
Self-care is a spiritual practice. It's a spiritual practice that we have to be intentional about manifesting. I know when I was an undergrad and even now at Candler, I have my checklist of things to do, and boy, am I excited when I can check something off of the list. It might take me like 3 and 4 days just to get a 3-page paper done because I procrastinated that much, but I'm excited to check it off my list. Self-care isn't just another thing to do. It's not something that we can just check off a list. It's an ever-growing, ever-going necessity for our lives. Self-care, it's love. It's loving yourself enough to put yourself first, to put your care first. Self-care is stewardship. Self-care is you being a good steward of what God has blessed you with, and that is your own self. And self-care is also honesty. It's being honest enough to know that I'm not invincible. I'm not Superman, I'm not Superwoman, and regardless of what TV says, we are going to have issues. College is chaotic, but I've learned that in the midst of the chaos is when we need to practice care the most. So what are some things we can do for our physical selves to take care?
You know, like I said, I gained 20 pounds. Not really happy about it, but thank God I have lost 20 pounds since then, thankfully. And I learned 3 very important lessons about how to take care of yourself physically in that. The first lesson that I learned was the importance of eating right and drinking water. So the best way I can explain this is, our bodies are cars. And how many of you have cars out there? How many of you have ever accidentally put the wrong type of fuel in your car before and tried to drive off? Yeah, it doesn't really work out. That happened to me once. I kind of drove off the lot, then it stalled a little bit, and then I tried to figure out what was wrong, and I realized, yeah, 89 was not the 87 I was supposed to put in there. So by the same token, when it comes to eating right, we have to make sure that the foods that we put into our bodies are the right type of foods for us. And by that same token, that goes with drinking water as well. Now, we all know the facts. Makes up 60% of our bodies. Experts say 6 to 8 glasses a day. But water is essential for purifying and reviving the things that we put into our body. Now, does this mean that we have to go to the kale, cabbage, and water diet, the paleo diet, the Daniel fast, or anything else like that? No. But that does mean that we need to be mindful of what we're putting inside of us, so that way what we put inside of us energizes us for what we need to do going forward. The second thing that I learned was the importance of sleep and rest. Not sleep or rest, sleep and rest. You know what the studies say, we should get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but I mean, I didn't do it in undergrad, and honestly, grad school's not that much easier either. So I asked God, so what exactly does rest look like if we're not getting the 7 to 9 hours? And he took me to the book of Mark, around the 6th chapter, around the 31st verse, where Jesus told the disciples to take rest. Now, what does that mean? That means that we live very busy, very important lives for God and for ourselves. So sometimes we may not always be able to get those 7 to 9 hours of sleep we're supposed to do. But it does mean that God will place times in our lives for us to take rest. So that means sometimes we should take the 30-minute nap or take time to sit back, take time to rest, take time to meditate instead of doing the other things that we just use as buffers in our lives. Sometimes free time doesn't necessarily mean fill-in time. Sometimes that just means it needs to be me time. And the last lesson that I learned was the importance of exercise. Now, we all know what the studies say. We should all get about 2.5 hours a week. But, I like sports. I like going to the gym. That might not be everybody's ministry. We understand that. But, the Bible says in 1 Corinthians that our bodies are our temples and that it's important for us to take care of the body that God gave us because what we're doing here is not only for us, it's for God as well. So what we need to do is be mindful that we need to be in shape to do what God wants us to do because God has called each and every one of us to a specific task. And we can't do that if we're slugging around all the time. So what does that look like in everyday life? Sometimes that means walking versus taking the car. That means finding good creative ways and different things to do with your friends instead of just sitting in your room all day playing video games or watching YouTube videos. It's little things that you do that build up your physical self, and next thing you know, you're going to look at yourself and say, wow, I feel a lot better. But I know that's physical, but I'm guessing some of you might be wondering, how exactly does this go into my everyday life a little bit more?
So I'm sure we've all heard the phrase by Ben Franklin, time is money, right? And I tend to agree with Ben on that. Not in the sense that we can earn a lot of time, but we can't just spend it any kind of way. Now, of course, we have 24 hours in the day, and ideally, maybe not realistically, but ideally, 8 of those hours should be used for sleeping. That leaves 16 hours in a day. We need to be intentional about how we use our time. Now, I don't spend my money just anywhere on anything, and I'm guessing most of you all don't either. I'm sure most of you all are acquainted with my good friend, The Struggle. But, if you do like to spend your money just anywhere, meet me on the side of the stage because the way my bank account is set up right now, there's a checking and a saving, and both of them can use some increase.
Well,
if we're going to speak about time in terms of money, then we have to be aware that not everyone can deserve our time. Not everyone actually can afford it. So we need to prioritize how are we going to use our time each and every day. Another thing to do is that we need to start plugging in. Think about our cell phones. Lord, do I have mine on me, Jesus? Think about our cell phones. When we get to a certain place, I have an iPhone. It'll let me know when the phone's at 20%. It'll let me know when the phone is at 10%. And I will be that one who's still talking on the phone as the battery is draining down. But when it gets to 1%, I will run. Yes, yes, God bless you, God bless you. Yes, yes, yes. Looking all over the place. Does anybody have an outlet? Does anyone have a cord? So why do we treat our phones better than we treat ourselves? Our body gives us indicators. And we've already established that we're not infallible, so we all need to plug in. We all need to have that place where we can go, get connected to somebody, something. I'm thankful for my brother, friends in Texas, my friend Valerie at Howard, my best friend Antonio on campus. Like, you need to find that place, be it a friend, be it a campus minister, who I'm sure all of you all came here with, or a therapist. I recommend therapy. I have a friend right now at Emory. She goes to therapy once a week. Why? Because she says that she does so much for other people. She needs one place where someone can do for her. And lastly, the thing that we need to do, we've already prioritized, we've already plugged in, we need to pray. And prayer is simply communication with God. I don't know where we got this notion that prayer always has a question mark behind it. You can go to God and not ask God for anything. If you just wake up and say, thank you, Lord, that's a prayer. If you say, Lord, thank you for taking me through this test that I know I didn't study for, but I still managed to be, God, I thank you for that. Take time. Take time to pray. I start off every morning now with prayer and devotion. And if you don't have a devotional, check your app store. I'm sure there are many, many devotionals up there that you can use and even set reminders on your phone to do them. So what does all this mean for us? Take everything that we've said and remember that it is a process. It's a process. Taking care of yourself does not work overnight. It surely didn't work for me and it didn't work for him. But take time. Learn from the process and give yourself grace throughout it.
And to those of you campus ministers, mentors, friends, teachers that are here, be encouraging, because the journey to self-care may be individual, but the journey that we're all on is something that we're all in together.
So we admonish you to take care of yourselves in the midst of the chaos. Take care of your physical self,
your mental self, your emotional self,
and your spiritual selves. A hymn writer said, "Be not dismayed. Whatever betides, God will take care of you." God bless you.